How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're on Daf Tes Zayin, Daf 16 of Masechta Sanhedrin. Awesome Masechta. Alright, here we go. We're going to start on Daf Tes Vav Amud Beis. We have about 10 lines or so to do on Daf Tes Vav Amud Beis. Ein Donin V'chulei Azoy. So we're talking about judging a shevet. So we say we judge a shevet with a bezdin of 71. Now, what did Rashi say in the Mishnah? So he says for a shevet, no. Rubai shel shevet shavda avodah zarah b'mezid. Ooh, what's this lamed though? Ayin Rasha. Oh, it doesn't say. Okay, so Rashi seems to say, or the Marsha. Anyways, Rashi seems to say Rubai shel shevet shavda avodah zarah b'mezid. That the majority of the shevet does avodah zarah. Okay, I think I think the implication in the Gemara is that we're talking about the entire shevet. Okay, so either at least the majority of the shevet, or maybe the entire shevet that does avodah zarah, but we don't yet know that actually. So it says the Gemara, "Hashevet dechotav mai." What did the shevet do? Initially, the Gemara wants to know, Pashit, what did the shevet do? If you're going to tell me that what they did was they were Mechal Shabbos, the Gans Shevet was Mechalel Shabbos. And therefore, since they were Mechal Shabbos, we judge them not with bezdins of 23, but with a bezdin of 71, with the bezdin Agadol, Sanhedrin Agadol. So, Ema the Polig Rachmana bin Yechidim L'Rubim Lini Avedis Kechavim, B'Shai Mitzvahs Min Polig. 1 second. We have a precedent for a distinction between an individual who sins versus many people who sin with regard to Avodah Zarah, Getchkes. That be'etzem, an individual who worships a Getchke, so he is Chayiv Skila, and he's judged in a bezdin of 23. Now, if you have an Ir Nidachas, right, which we're going to learn about, although not in too much detail, but anyways, if you have a city that does Avodah Zarah, at least not now, a city that does Avodah Zarah, so then it's got its own special halachis. It's judged with a bezdin of 71, and you chop off heads instead of stoning. It's different halachis. So we see a distinction between individuals and many when it comes to Avodah Zarah, but do we have such a distinction? Do we have a precedent for such a distinction when it comes to other Averis that we should say that if they were Mechal Shabbos, then they should be judged by 71? So again, what did they do wrong? If we're talking about that the shevet was Mechal Shabbos, and therefore they're judged with 71. I'll say that we have a precedent for distinguishing between individuals and many when it comes to Avodah Zarah. For example, you have an individual and you have an Ir Nidachas, different halachis. But b'shar mitzvahs mipalak, do we have such a precedent for a distinction by other mitzvahs? Ela b'shevet shehudach. Okay, so let's talk about that it is a shevet that they all did. Let's just say that they all did Avodah Zarah. They all did Avodah Zarah, and therefore they're judged B'dina derabim, right? 71. I think the point would also be, what does Rashi say? The Memra, where am I? Okay. Okay. Fine. Right. So let's go about that for a second. So the Memra B'dina derabim daninalei. There you go. So does that mean that so we want to say that, it's talking about that the shevet, they were oved avodah zarah. Okay, and therefore what? So are we saying that we judge them b'dina derabim? Okay, so we basically treat a shevet that does avodah zarah like a city that does avodah zarah, a bezdin of 71. We chop off their heads rather than stoning them. But come on, who's that like? Look Rabbi Yoshev, look Rabbi Yonason. It's like neither Rabbi Yoshev nor like Rabbi Yonason. The Tanya that we have a machlokes between Rabbi Yoshev and Rabbi Yonason when it comes to defining and setting the parameters for an Ir Nidachas. The Tanya ad kama eis in Ir Nidachas. What are the parameters for Ir Nidachas? What are the limitations for Ir Nidachas? Miyud vad kuf de Rabbi Yoshev. Rabbi Yoshev says if the city has between 10 and 100 residents, that could be an Ir Nidachas. Less or more nit. And here we're talking about a whole shevet. Rabbi Yonasan Amar says, Rabbi Yonasan Mikuv V'ad Rubo Shel Shevet. From 100 until the majority of the shevet. Once I already get to the majority of the shevet, so then it would not be an Ir Nidachas. It would not be an Ir Nidachas. And here we're talking about at least the majority of the shevet. So it can't be that we would treat that as an Ir Nidachas. Even Rabbi Yonasan, who has the larger shear from 100 until the majority of the shevet, Lo Kamer El Rubo, only up until the majority of Al Kulo Lo, but not if it's the entirety of the shevet, or I'd say even a majority of the shevet. So what's the dilio? What's the dilio? Right? We said it can't be talking about where the shevet was Mechal Shabbos, because we don't have a precedent for a distinction between individuals and many when it comes to Chil Shabbos. Avodah Zarah we have such a distinction, but that would be specifically by an Ir Nidachas, and this is beyond the scope of an Ir Nidachas. Rav Masna says, Rav Masna, Hocha b'nosi shevet shechata askinun. Azod. Here we're talking about the head of the shevet, the head of the tribe that sinned and committed a capital offense. And instead of being judged by 23 judges, he would be judged by 71. Miloi Omer of Adabar Ahava, because after all, did Adabar Ahava not say, Kol Adovra Agodu Yaviu Elecho, that when the Pasuk says that any great matter will go to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu is considered like the Sanhedrin. Yaviu Elecho, any great matter they will bring to you, Devar of Shel Gadol. We are talking about matters of a great person. For example, a nasi of a shevet would fit the bill. Sainami Gadol Hu, so we are talking, so this would, right, the nasi of a shevet would fit the bill. So says Rav Masna, what we're talking about in the Mishnah is that the leader of the shevet sinned and he is judged by 71 judges. Ula Amr says, Ula Amr Balazar, Beboin al iske nachlis. Well, if the shevet has disputes regarding divisions of land of Eretz Yisrael, and it's like initially with Eretz Yisrael, just like initially there was 71. Okay, one second. Okay, fine. All right. Okay. I guess initially there was the bezin of Shibim ve'echad. Af kan Shibim ve'echad. So here also, when there are disputes with regard to land, so it would be with 71. But imat chilasa kalpi v'urim v'tumim v'chol Yisrael. But when Eretz Yisrael was initially divided up, there was also the lots. There was also the urim v'tumim. There was also all the yidden there. Havkan kalpi urim v'tumim v'chol Yisrael. So I should say here also, whenever there are debates, whenever there are disputes with regard to nachlis, with regard to land, so we would need not just Sanhedrin, but also all of Israel, lots, urim v'tumim. So no. So ela machvarto kidur of Masna. Rather, it makes more sense like Rav Masna that we're talking about the nasi of a shevet who sins in a capital offense. Ravina Amar la'olam b'shevet shehudach. So Ravina says, no, really it is talking about a tribe that worships Getchkis. And you're going to ask, so what, are we treating them like an Ir Nidachas? But I thought we said that a shevet is beyond the scope of an Ir Nidachas. Yes, we are treating it Bedina Derabim, like, I guess, not exactly like an Ir Nidachas per se, but with the Dina Derabim, in that it's judged with 71. And even though, unlike, so it's not exactly like an Ir Nidachas, because an Ir Nidachas, yes, is judged with the bezin of 71, but also the punishment is chopping heads. Where over here the punishment by a shevet would still be skila. Okay, we would still judge them for skila, like an individual who worships a getchke. But nonetheless, Beidina D'Rabim Da'inan Le, we would judge them in a bezin of 71, because after all, Milo Amr B'chama B'Rab Yosi Amr B'Shaivo Tzesas Ha'ishahu Osa Ha'isha Ahivigomer. Now the pasuk says that individual who worships a getchke, we take them El She'arecha to Sanhedrin in your midst, i.e., Sanhedrin of 23. Ish v'isha ata motzi l'sharecha. You take a individual fellow or an individual fella to a bezin of 23. V'ata motzi kol ha'ir kula l'sharecha. But you don't take an entire city to a bezin of 23. That would go to the Sanhedrin Gedola. Hachanami, here also, ish v'isha ata motzi l'sharecha v'ata motzi kol ha'shevet kula l'sharecha. Here ochet, individuals you could bring to a bezdin of 23, but an entire shevet would go to a bezdin of 71. Azoi. Le'ez novi sheker. Additionally, a false prophet would be judged by a bezdin of 71. Minan emili, how do we know this? Amar b'yesi b'bchanina, says b'yesi b'bchanina, asyo hazode mizokin mamre. Azoi. By a zokin mamre, it says Azadeh, and also by in Novi Sheker it says Azadeh. Malol Mishif Mechad, Avkam Mishif Mechad, just like by Zokin Mamre, it's 71, so here also it's 71. So now, there are a few things that we have to say over here. 1 second, I need to rub my nose. Sorry about that. Okay. So, there are a few things we need to say here. Okay. What's a Novi Sheker? Novi Sheker is a false prophet. Okay. What's a Zokin Mamre? We learned about Zokin Mamre, was it yesterday or the day before? The day before. Zokin Mamre is Be'etzem, a rabbi who gives a psak halacha that contradicts the psak halacha of the Sanhedrin Gedola, of the big Sanhedrin. Sorry, I gotta keep scratching my nose. Okay. Now, the thing is that there are two stages to a Zakin Mamre. What he does is, as we learned the other day, this posek or whatever, this renegade posek would come to Yerushalayim and he would make his case before the Sanhedrin as to why, the Sanhedrin Gedola, as to why he paskins the way he paskins. And then they give their ruling. They say, we agree or we disagree. If it's a Zakin Mamre, Memele, it means that they disagree. Now that's where you need the Sanhedrin Gedola for to make the case, to make the argument. Okay, if they disagree, it's not chayiv misa because they disagree. But if they disagree, then he has to toe the line, though. He can't go and continue paskening his way. Once already he made his case before the Sanhedrin, they disagreed with him. He has to go with their ruling. When he then goes back to wherever he lives and he paskins against the Sanhedrin, at that point he's chayiv misa. But he's not judged in a bezin of 71. At that point, he's just pasha judged in a regular bezin, 23 for capital cases. So him making his case before the Sanhedrin needs to be in front of the Sanhedrin. If he then continues paskening against the Sanhedrin, at that point he's chayiv misa, but that's in a bezin of 23. That's just a regular capital case, it would be 23. So now, we're saying, how do we know? So that's by Zakin Mamre. How do we know that by a false prophet, he's judged with 21? With 71. So how do we know this? Well, it says Hazodeh by Zakin Mamre, it says Hazodeh by Novi Sheker. Just like by a Novi Sheker. No, just like by a Zakin Mamre, we're talking about 71. So here also by Novi Sheker, we're talking about 71. Reflecting Gemara. But by a Zakin Mamre, when it says Hazoda, what does the pasuk say by Zakin Mamre? So it says Bizodun, so it says Hazoda by a Zakin Mamre, but that is by his death sentence. But as I just mentioned, by Zakin Mamre, when he continues paskening against the Sanhedrin, and we kill him, that's just simply by a bezdin of 23. So based on that Gzeir Shava, I should only know that by a Novi Sheker, it's also 23. Rather says Rishlakish Gomer Dover Me'amra also. Rather, it says Dover by a Novi Sheker, and it Ochit says Dover by the making of the case of the Zakin Mamre. When he goes and he makes his case before the Sanhedrin of 71, it says Dover. So it says Dover by Novi Sheker, and it says Dover by Zakin Mamre, Me'amra also. When he's kind of making his case to the Sanhedrin. And therefore, just like that is 71, so also the case, the judgment, the court case of a Navi Sheker is by 71 as well. Now, okay, fine, give Aldik. So it says Dover by the Zakin Mamre making his case, and that's in front of 71. And it says Dover by Navi Sheker. So if a Navi Sheker's judge was 71 to be killed, why don't we then use the Gezer Shava of Hazodeh, that it says Hazodeh by Navi Sheker, which is 71, and Hazodeh by Zakin Mamre, where he's killed, to say that by Zakin Mamre he's also killed by 71 as well. Dover Gomer Hazodeh Lo Gomer, because we have a Gezer Shava for Dover. We don't have a Gezer Shava for Hazodeh, and therefore we cannot learn out that by Zakin Mamre would be killed in a Bezdin of 71. Azoy. V'loy es koin gadol, and a koin gadol who commits a capital offense would be judged in a Bezdin of 71. Okay. How do we know this? How do we know this? How do we know this? Amr Vada Bar Hava, the Pasuk says, Kol Adovra Agodol Yaviu Eilecho, Devarav Shel Godol, that any large matter, any great matter they will bring to you, Moshe Rabbeinu is like the Sanhedrin, and Devarav Shel Godol, matters of a great person, including a Kohen Gadol. So therefore, Kohen Gadol is judged in the Sanhedrin of 71. Meizveb, we have a contradiction. Dover Gadol, Dover Koshe. Then when it says Dover Gadol, it means difficult matters. Called Dover Gadol Yiviu Eilecho. That when it says that Dover Gadol, it means challenging, difficult matters that are beyond the scope, beyond the what could be handled by the smaller bezdin, but the din in those would go to Moshe Rabbeinu. But not specifically the cases of VIPs. Do you think it means that difficult cases go to Moshe Rabbeinu? Or maybe Taka means VIPs. Cases of great people, such as the Kohen Gadol. Well, Omer, as a Dover Akoshe, Yaviu Nel Moshe, Hare Dover Kosher Omer. Period. Well, the thing is, we have another pasuk that says, as a Dover Akoshe, Yaviu Nel Moshe. There you have a pasuk that's explicit, that difficult cases go to Moshe. So there you have it, difficult cases will go to Moshe. And therefore when it says Kol Davar Gadol Yivinu Elai, it's talking about difficult cases, as we know from the other pasuk. Maybe you're wondering, why do we need two psukim? I would think that if this pasuk is talking about difficult cases, that pasuk should be talking about VIPs. Okay, first of all, that's the brisa that we're about to see. The Gemara is also going to ask that question. Okay. Hudamri Ki Aitana. So the Gemara answers that when our Mishnah says that a Kohen Gadol is judged by a Sanhedrin Gedola, it's because it's like the following Tana. The Tana that we learned in the Brisa, Dover Gadol, Dvarav Shel Gadol, that when the pasuk says that any Dover Gadol will go to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's talking about VIPs. Wait, is it actually talking about VIPs? Or Eno Ella Dover Kosher? Maybe it means difficult, challenging cases go to Moshe. Look, we have a different pasuk that talks about difficult matters going to Moshe Rabbeinu. So Amani Mekayim Dover Gadol. So what's this pasuk talking about when it's talking about Dover Gadol? It's not talking about difficult matters because that's the other pasuk. So this pasuk is talking about Dvar Shel Gadol, VIPs. Tana, and according to the first brisa, where we say, well, since the other pasuk says Dover Kosher and it's talking about difficult matters, so therefore Dover Gadol must also be talking about the same thing, difficult matters. But why would I need two psukim to teach me the same thing? If the other pasuk is talking about difficult matters, wouldn't it make sense to be saying that this pasuk therefore is talking about VIPs? Well, one is for the command to say that difficult matters should go to Moshe Rabbeinu, and the other one is to say that they in fact did go to Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, but they're both talking about difficult matters according to that opinion. Ve'idach, whereas the other Tana, who says that we're talking about VIPs, would argue imkain that if so, that both are talking about difficult matters, and just one of them is talking about the command, and the other one is saying about the implementation, it will then be consistent. Both psukim should be talking about davar kosher, or both psukim should be talking about davar gadol. My gadol, my kosher. How come one's talking about davar kosher, one's talking about davar gadol? Because they're two different things. Shmamino tarte, therefore must be that they're talking about two separate concepts. One's talking about difficult matter, the other one's talking about VIPs. But Rabbi Lazar asked the kasha, shorish shel kohen gadol b'chama. What if the ox of a kohen gadol kills somebody? So we said misas balim kach misas ashor, just like misas balim is 23 judges, so also misas ashor is 23 judges. But in the case of a kohen gadol, the balim isn't 23 judges. A kohen gadol is 71 judges. So what about his ox? Would it be 71 judges as well, or that's still 23? Where am I? Right. So the misas balim didei midamin alei. Do we compare it to the misas balim of the kohen gadol, which is actually 71? Or maybe we compare the shore of the kohen gadol to just misas balim in general, and therefore be 23. Now the Gemara doesn't seem to answer this question, but instead focuses on a other interesting point, which is Abaye points out now from the fact that the Gemara is what's the word called? Like busy with is, I don't know. The Gemara is preoccupied with trying to figure out such a technical question like the ox of a kohen gadol that kills, and is not curious about, I don't know, what if the kohen gadol like borrows money and like needs to go to court about just like financial things, or like buys a house or something and like needs to deal with like financial courts. So well, that implies that if the Gemara doesn't have to talk about what about just like standard cases of the kohen gadol when he just like, I don't know, needs like a lawyer to go to court for something. Well, then it seems to be obvious to the Gemara that would just be like everybody else, a 3-person court. Pshita, that's obvious. I may have thought, I may have thought that all things related to a kohen gadol straight, for all VIP matters straight to Sanhedrin of 71, nit. Only capital cases, regular cases would just be regular bezdin of 3. Now the Mishnah continues and says, by milchemes harishus, which is better any milchame other than the milchemes of Yoshua when the Yidden came to Eretz Yisrael initially. So any elective milchama, you would have to ask for the opinion of the Sanhedrin Gedol. I didn't know this. Amar Babo says, Rabbi Babo, the Amar Kol, the Pasuk says, Vifnei Elazar HaKohen, in front of Elazar the Kohen, Yamod, he will stand, who? Zemelech, that's right, so Elazar HaKohen, and the king, V'chol Bnei Yisrael, Ito, and all of Israel, Zemeshuach Melchama, that refers to the Kohen Meshuach Melchama, V'chol Ha'eda, and all of the congregations, as Sanhedrin, that's a reference to the Sanhedrin. Okay, so we see that in order to, before you go to war, so you have to consult with the Sanhedrin. But V'dilma the Sanhedrin, Ude Ka'amar Luhu Rachmana D'Lishai L'Burim V'tumim. But 1 second. When it mentions the Sanhedrin in that pasuk before going to war, how do we know that it means that we have to consult with them to get their opinion? Maybe it simply means that we ask them to ask the Urim V'tumim for us if we should go to war. But not that we ask them for their opinion, but that they should ask the Urim V'tumim. Rather, to give Acha Bar Bizna Amr Reb Shimon Chasida, this was one of the first Gemaras that we ever learned together on Babylon Talmud 5 years ago. It was like Kilu Mamish 5 years ago. Mamish. Pretty much Mamish 5 years ago. Brachis, Daf Gimel Amud Beis. Second daf of all of Babylon Talmud. That a harp was above the bed of King David, and it would come midnight, and a northern wind would blow on the harp, and the harp would begin playing. Immediately King David would get up and he would study the Holy Torah until the morning, until the morning, until dawn. Once it was dawn, Nichnasu Chachomov, Nichnasu Chachmei Yisrael Etzlo, the sages of Israel would come before him and he would get to work, start dealing with royal matters. They said to him, Adonenu HaMelech, our master the king, your people need parnose. They have to be able to support themselves. They need money. They need to make a living. And he said to them, so open up a falafel stand and let everybody buy falafels from each other. And they'll make money. They said to him, look, the wealth that is currently among the Yidden here in Eretz Yisrael is not that much. And a handful is not enough to feed a lion. We need more injections of capital, of finance. And if you have a pit and you want to fill it in, you can't fill the pit by digging within the pit and adding dirt from within the pit itself. You need external dirt. So he says to them, okay, go to war, capture some countries, and like this we'll have injections of whatever we need. Immediately they would go and ask advice. They would consult with Achitophel and the Sanhedrin, and they would ask the Urim V'Tumim. So we see here that the Sanhedrin and the Urim V'Tumim are mentioned separately, i.e., yes, they would ask the Urim V'Tumim, but they would also get the opinion of the Sanhedrin Gedolah. So we see that to go to Milchemes HaReshus, as described here with King David, they would have to consult, they would have to get the opinion of the Sanhedrin Gedolah. Amr Yosef Maikra says, Yosef, where do we have a pasuk for what we just described with King David and his advisors? That after Achitophel ben Ayahu ben Yoyada, Vev Yosser, besides Melech Yoyav, Achitophel is a Yoyetz. Achitophel is they would consult with him. And similarly it says, and the advice of Achitophel who advised. When it says Ben Yoyada, that's a reference to the Sanhedrin. Ev Yosser el Urim V'Tumim, and Ev Yosser is a reference to Urim V'Tumim. V'chenu Omer Yoyada al akresi ve'al aplesi. That Ben Yoyada was upon, i.e., like preceded the kresi and the plesi, the Urim V'Tumim, and therefore Urim V'Tumim is a reference, and therefore that's how we know. Right? It says Ben Yoyada, and then Ev Yosser. So therefore, Ev Yosser is a reference to the Urim V'Tumim because Ben Yoyada would be before the Urim V'Tumim. Kresi Shekars and Devreyan, they're called Kresi because they, apply or are explicit about their words. By saying that their actions are awesome. And then afterwards, the general Yoav. Where do we have a pasuk about this harp above the bed of King David? Or Kvodi Ura Haneva V'Achinor Haneva what? Ura Kvodi Ura Haneva V'Achinor Ha'ira Shachar. That my honor will awake the harp and the lyre, maybe the lyre and the harp. I will awake in the morning. I'll get up early and learn Torah and then deal with royal matters. Alright. Woo! It's a marathon. In order to add and extend the borders of the city and of the Azaras of the Beis HaMikdash, you would need a Bezdin of 71. But not immediately, we know this. Amar of Shimi bar Chio. Omakra, Kichol asher ani mare oscha eis tabnis hamishkan. Like all that I show you with the structure of the Mishkan, Ve'establis kol kelav in all of its vessels, v'chein taisu, so shall you do lidoris for all generations, aboin, for upcoming generations. And therefore, just like initially it was with Moshe, who was the key to the Sanhedrin, so therefore whenever we want to make adjustments to the city and to the Azaras, would be with 71, a bezin of 71. Mosiv Rav has a kasha, kol hakelim she'asa Moshe, all of the vessels that Moshe Rabbeinu made, Mishichos and Mekadshan, anointing them with Shemin HaMishcha would be Mekadesh them. And now they are Klei Asharis, they could be used. But for subsequent generations, avidosan mechan choson, you would use them, and by using them, they would become klei sharis. But why should there be such a distinction? Because after all, name of v'chein taisu l'doros haboyin. The pasuk says, right? We just read the pasuk. That all the vessels should essentially have the same halachas for all subsequent generations. So why are we saying that Moshe Rabbeinu's vessels were anointed with Sheven HaMishcha, and yet for subsequent generations, Avodasan Mechan Chason, which is V'chein Taisu Doros Haboyin, that they should all be the same. They should all be Sheven HaMishcha. Shiny also notes, even by the vessels, because the Apostle says, Vayim Shachem, Vayikadesh Eisom. It says that by Moshe Rabbeinu's vessels that he anointed them and he was Mekadesh them. Osam b'Mashiach, those Moshe Rabbeinu's were with Mashiach, below the doors but Mashiach, but the subsequent generations were not with Mashiach. They were with Avoda. They were Osam b'Mashiach v'ledoris I b'Mashiach I b'Avoda. Let me humbly suggest, says the Gemara, that maybe Moshe Rabbeinu's vessels were purely initiated with anointing oils. But for subsequent generations, it's either Meshicha or Avoda. Either anoint it or work it. Amr Pape, Amr Kra, says a Pape that the Pasuk says, Asher Yishar Subam Ba'Kedesh, that the Pasuk says by the subsequent generations, is Asher Yishar Subam Ba'Kodesh, that you should use them. HaKadosh Lo B'Sheris, that their initiation is connected to their use rather than their anointing. Okay, so I think the point is, why do I need both psukim? So if we have a pasuk already that says that we have to initiate them by using them, so then why do I need the first pasuk by Moshe Rabbeinu to say osam b'mishicha but not the others? I already know the Moshes were anointed, and we know that we have a separate pasuk by the others that the others avodasim mechan chasen. So why do we need this osam that they are anointed but not the others? I know not the others. The pasuk says that they would be worked. So ilav osam, if not for the fact that it says osam specifically by Moshe Rabbeinu, havamina l'doros b'mishicha uva avoda. I might think that by the subsequent generations you have to do both. Yes, you have to work them, but you also have to anoint them. Toksiv v'chein taisu says so you shall do for all generations. Because of achmana osam b'mishicha v'l'doros b'mishicha. Therefore it says no. Those Moshe Rabbeinu's vessels that he made for the Mishkan, those were initiated by anointing. Putting anointing oils on it. Subsequently, it was not with anointing oils, it was specifically avodas mechan chason, by using them. They become holy. Ve'ein osin sanedros v'chulei. We said that the establishment of Sanhedrin Ketanas, of Sanhedrins of 23s, were established by Sanhedrins of 71. How do we know this? Because Ashkan b'Moshe, as we know by Moshe, the Uki Sanhedros, he made up all the, right? He set up all those smaller Sanhedrins. And Moshe was keneged a bezdin of 71. So it's either like you need a bezdin of 71 a Sanhedrin of 71 in order to establish smaller Sanhedrin Ketanas. How do we know that we establish judges for Israel? You shall in place judges. Shotrim l'Yisrael. I don't know that you should have officers, police officers, to implement the judgments of the courts. Tamilomar Shotrim Titen says you should have officers. Shoftim l'chol shevet v'sheva. I don't know you should have judges for each shevet. Minayin Tamilomar Shoftim l'shvatecha. Shoftim for your shevets. Shotrim l'chol shevet v'sheva. How do we know officers for every shevet? Minayin Tamilomar Shotrim l'shvatecha. Officers for your shevets. Shoftim l'chol ir v'ir. Minayin. I don't know shoftim for each city. Tamilomar Shoftim l'sharecha. Shotrim l'chol ir v'ir. Minayin Tamilomar Shotrim l'sharecha. Rabbi Omer echad memuna al kulan. Rabbi says that the Sanhedrin Gedola is appointed on all of them. I think the point is that it's needed to establish them. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Titein licha, you shall place for yourself. It is a mitzvah for each shevet to judge its own shevet. Okay, fine. Weiter. Okay, to make an ir anidachas, as we described earlier, a city where the people are serving avodah zarah, that needs a bezin of 71. We know this. Reb Chia bar Yosef Amar Reb Oshai Amar Kro v'otzeso sa'ish ahu or sa'isha ahi, that you'll take out that individual person, fellow or fella. Ish v'ish atamot l'sharecha. Individuals are brought to a court of 23. V'atamot kol ha'ir kula l'sharecha, but not an entire city. Entire city doesn't go to a bezin of 23, rather a bezin of 71. In Osenir anidachas bisfar. We don't make an ir anidachas in a border town, right? You don't just destroy a town that's on the border of the country. My time mikir becha amar achmana v'lo min asvar. The pasuk says from in your midst, right? It says, what does the pasuk say? Yotzu anoshim b'nei Bilial mikir becha v'yadichu es yoshvei iram, etc. So from your midst, not from the periphery. V'lo shalish, you don't have 3 ir anidachas. Ir anidachases. The pasuk says achas. That you can have one. Aval osen achas or shtaim. You can have 1 or 2. Dichsiv arecha. It says your cities. So you can have 1, 2, but not 3. So the rabbis taught achas v'lo shalosh. When it says 1, it means 1 ir anidachas, but not 3. Atoma achas v'lo shalosh v'noel achas v'lo shtaim. Wait, maybe when it says 1, it means 1, but not 2. You can have 1 ir anidachas, but not 2 ir anidachases. When it says arecha, cities, plural, right? It says Yotzu anoshim b'nei Bilial mikibech v'edichu es yoshvei iram. Wait, what? Which pasuk am I looking at? Gisishma ba'achas arecha. So arecha is plural. Harishtayim amar. So it's talking about 2. So you can have 2 ir nidachases. Hamani mekayim achas. And what does it mean? 1 achas v'lo shalosh, but not 3. You can't have 3 ir nidachases. Zimn number of. Sometimes Rav said, "Bebezdin echaru de'ein osin." You can't have 3 ir anidachases from established by 1 Sanhedrin. But if that Sanhedrin was already all the kind of judges retired and have been replaced, and it's a brand new Sanhedrin, it's all new people, all new judges. If it's different Sanhedrins, then you can have 3. You can have 2 from this Sanhedrin and another 2 from another Sanhedrin. But other times, Rav would say, no, you can never have 3 ir anidachases in Eretz Yisrael. My time of the Rav, mishum karcha. We would never want 3 ir anidachases because you don't want sort of too much baldness, like empty, destroyed cities in Eretz Yisrael. When we say you can't have 3, it's only in one place. Also, you can have 3 in 2 different places. For example, you can't have 3 in the Galil, but you can have 2 in the Galil and 2 in Yehuda, even though it's a total of 4, but they're spread out among different places. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan says, no, even in 2 different areas, you can't have 3 ir anidachases because it's too many empty spaces. Tanakavos Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brayta supporting Rabbi Yochanan. Ein osin shalosh ayaros menudachos b'Eretz Yisrael. You simply don't have 3 ir anidachases in Eretz Yisrael. Aval osin osam shtayim. You can have 2. Kagon achas b'Yehuda v'achas b'Galil. For example, you can have 1 Yehuda and 1 in Galil. Aval shtayim b'Yehuda v'shtayim b'Galil ein osin. But you can't have 2 in Yehuda and 2 in the Galil, because that would be a total of 4. Ein osin, fine, ein osin. V'smucha l'svar, and if it is near the periphery, afilu achas ein osin, you wouldn't even have 1. My time I'll come, shamishmu nachrim v'achriv Eretz Yisrael, because we don't want the nachrim to find out that there is a bald spot on the periphery and come and attack Eretz Yisrael. Unfortunately, we've seen recently what happens when our enemies attack on our borders. But what about the fact that simply the pasuk says that ir anidacha is in your midst and not in the periphery? Reb Shimon, this is the opinion of Reb Shimon, the Darish time of the Kra, who darshans the reasons behind the psukim. So meaning, yes, what's the reason why the pasuk says mikirbecha, from your midst and not from the periphery? Because if you have an irnei dachas, which is a bald spot on the periphery, then enemies can attack. Wow, we did a lot today. That was daf 16 of Masechta Sanhedrin. We went weiter and explained different parts of the Mishnah, right? For example, we talked about a shevet, right? A shevet being judged by 71, and Navi Sheker, talked about Melchemes HaReshus, Kohen Gadol, all sorts of things like that. Peace out.